The solar plexus chakra. It's manipura. The solar plexus energy is about stepping into your power, feeling the fire in your belly where the passion resides in our souls. So we've moved from our root chakra, which is our ancestors, our history, our roots, into sacral, where we begin to find our individuality. And now we're in solar plexus, which is our best place to find our willpower, the discipline to live and light the fire within. This is the center that connects our roots and our earth to our heart. So it's continuing to move upwards. The life lessons we experience is the depth of who we are with self-empowerment and self-esteem, living our life and our soul purpose. I love that this is the place where our passion resides, that fire in our belly. It is the fire element. So you'll hear me always refer to it as the fire in our belly, leaving ego and finding purpose, being willpower and discipline so that we stay on our purpose and we are not led by ego. How much do you know about the chakras? You probably heard them talked about as the 7 main energy centers in your body. You may have heard of them in yoga class, through guided meditation, or in Reiki. Maybe you know a little bit about the chakras, but aren't really sure how to use them to guide you. I'm creating a deep dive into the chakras and color therapy for the next 8 weeks. Each week, my guest and I will discuss one chakra, how they've connected to the energy of that chakra through their journey, and how they feel guided or inspired by the energy. Sound interesting? I hope you'll enjoy the conversation. Let's get started. Hi, and welcome to today's episode of Grounding Journey. We are talking all about the solar plexus chakra today. And I am excited to talk about this, which is what I say about every one of them. But this is definitely one that, as I've been launching Grounding Journey and the Etsy products, has been a challenge for me. So Dreana, my guest here with me today, is a wife, mother to 2 adult children. She's a passionate essential oil educator and certified yoga practitioner. So like my mirror image, except I only have 1 kid, so I'll take that back. Her passion is helping others find balance through all seasons of life. So Dreana, I'm so excited to have you here. Thank you so much for being with me today.
Thank you for having me, Chris. I'm excited to be here too and have this conversation with you.
Yeah. And so you feel very drawn to and inspired by the solar plexus, and I'm excited to chat about that. But before we get started, let's talk a little bit more about who you are. Who do your friends know you as in your journey in life?
Well, because I'm practicing that 3rd chakra and stepping into my personal power, I really just want to say I am briefly. That feels very awkward, but it just feels powerful to me. So I'm going to practice saying that. And I'm a daughter of Christ, and yes, I'm a wife and a mother to 2. But I'm a real woman, just like the rest of us. I have sensitivities and struggles just like everybody else. I love nature. I love anything that is empowering with the body and the mind. So all the holistic solutions, I enjoy reading. However, I'm more of a self-help junkie, so I can't help myself. I want to learn more about like, how can I help myself? How can I help others and be a better person? I love the simple things in life, like food, good nutrition. I love music and dancing and all kinds of music. And I love hikes. My husband and I are doing national park hikes every year, which has been fantastic. And I love chocolate and coffee. It's like, I'm like just a real normal person.
I love that. And it is, you are just a normal person like we all are. And so we've all had our own challenges and our own struggles through life and finding our spirituality. And for the point of this, because I love that you said you're a daughter of Christ, because that's one of the things I want to talk about with you is there's faith and there's spirituality. And I don't know if faith is the right word we want to use, because I don't want to use religion, but, I don't want to say that you're religious, but I want to differentiate those two, because I know that that is something that so many people on the journey of self-help and spirituality come up against, that friction, that struggle of how do I believe in my faith and the Bible and God and believe in spirituality and chakras and energy work and meditation. So I would love to hear you share just a little bit about that journey for you. And then we'll really dig into the solar
Okay.
plexus. But I think that will really help people relate that are on the fence.
Yes, I'm glad you brought that up, Chris, because it's honestly, it's something I'm still working through. Being a believer, not everybody's going to believe in yoga and chakras and all those things and meditation. But that is also where that third chakra comes into play and your personal power. And, I look at it as this is a good practice and just stepping into who I am. And if I have the spirit in me, which I do, and I feel led very strongly to teach yoga to help people, I'll say people, not just women, because I believe that men and teens and young adults can do yoga too, with all of those different modalities to help draw closer. I feel that it draws me closer to God and my relationship and my faith. It helps me to see myself more as how I was created and who He made me to be. And so I would just encourage people who are quick to say, oh, that is, for lack of better terms, wrong or not right. I would say, hold on, tap into where you're receiving that information. If it's a book or whatever, just research, do your own homework, because that's how I was,
Mhm.
honestly, when it came to the chakras at first, Chris. I was like, oh, wait, I don't know. Like, I have a faith. Like, I don't know if that's like, I was like witchcraft stuff and all the things. And it was only because I didn't know, first of all, what is it? Where did it come
Mhm.
from? How does it work? And I wasn't allowing myself to really follow my passions and my heart and my dreams. And if I am a believer and I have Christ in me, where are those ideas and passions coming from? So I know I was called to teach about oils. I know without a doubt I was called to teach yoga because I'm not a young teacher. Um, and I was also called and led to learning more about the chakras. And I am no expert by any means. I am just learning. I feel like the journey is just beginning for me, but I love where I'm at and I embrace where I'm at, and I'm going to continue to learn and share. So I just encourage your listeners to have a little bit of an open mind, not to drop what is important to you or take away from anybody's morals and values. Just check in where those thoughts are coming from first and foremost. So
I think that's a great answer, to just be open minded and check in. Check in. Are you being influenced by outside sources? Are you feeling it in your body? And my favorite word is research. Read,
yeah.
learn, explore. And I know that my spiritual journey, because I was raised Catholic, my dad was a Jesuit. So, he was in the Brotherhood when he left the Brotherhood to become a volunteer firefighter and marry my mom 10 years younger. So we have kind of an interesting story, but he still raised me Catholic and then encouraged me in middle school to explore my own faith, to
Mm.
decide what that looked like for me. And I have read so many books, and it's all, not the book, but so many books are people's opinions. So it's kind of
Mhm.
like one of the things I learned in 12 step: take what you like and leave the rest, and
Yeah.
use that so that you are taking what resonates for you, being open-minded to the fact that other people have things that resonate to them, and then leave the rest. And so I love that you say be open-minded and research.
Hmm. Yeah. So that's a good question.
Well, let's dig into your growth. And so, have you kind of worked through learning about all the chakras? Are you new to that journey so that you're really focusing on solar plexus right now? Tell me what it's looked like a little bit for you.
So in my yoga teacher training, we did talk about all of them, some more than others. So I do have a little bit of an understanding of the basics of them, I would say, and I do know where to go to dive in a little bit deeper. And so I I guess to say, yes, a basic knowledge of all of them. But I do feel very strongly about the solar plexus, just because that's been the one that probably has had the most blocks, if you will, at any given point in time. And I look at the chakras also like our hormones, which are, they're not always in balance and they fluctuate. And the chakras are the same way. We go through different things in life and stages, and sometimes we have one blocked here or there. But for me, the third one being the solar plexus I can definitely tell that's where I will tend to get more blocks than any. So that's why I'm passionate about that one.
Well, and we'll talk, I kind of introduced it before we started our podcast, but the solar plexus is about stepping into your power, feeling the fire in your belly. It's moving from the sacral of starting to become an individual into the full, I am an individual, and developing your willpower. And that's where passion becomes fire in ourselves. And so for me right now, the solar plexus is really about that passion and that fire within, because I've got willpower down. Like, I can not eat the cake that's in the house. I can get the job done. So that wasn't necessarily for me, but for me, it was more that keeping the fire in my belly and letting my light shine, because that's also part of the solar plexus, is really being comfortable to let your light shine. So that's what it's been for me with Grounding Journey and the podcast and stepping out to be seen. So talk to me. I know you had mentioned yours was more about moving from not enough in comparison into one of self-love and living your purpose. Let's talk a little bit more about what that's looked like for you. How long have you been a yoga teacher?
I graduated my yoga teacher training in August of 2021. So I'm fairly new, but I put myself right out there. I did not wait and delay. And I did that to step into my personal power and do what I was called to do. So I'm so glad I did. So I feel like I've been teaching a while now, because I'm teaching pretty consistently at a few different places. So, but yeah, still considered, I guess, a baby yoga teacher at the age of 50. So,
well, and I love that, because one of the things that I find too is, because you're still new, a newbie, air quoting, is you've still got that excitement. You haven't been doing it so long that you're just in automatic mode. You're still learning and discovering and developing and figuring things out and figuring out what that looks like for you. So as I mentioned, let's talk about what your growth from not enough in comparison to one of self-love and living your purpose was like for you.
Well, it goes back to, really my teenage years too. Always had that comparison issue pop up for me, comparing myself to the girl next to me. I'm not smart enough, not pretty enough, not thin enough, not funny enough, whatever, not enough, fill in the blank, right? We all have that. For me, one of the biggest ones was not smart enough. And that still creeps up pretty frequently, but I can kind of reduce that flame pretty quickly as well. But so going through high school, about ready to graduate, I remember my friends talking about going to college, and they were going here and there, and they were going to do this and they were going to do that. And I remember feeling like confused, because I really hadn't thought about it. I met my current husband in high school and we were dating, and really all I wanted to do was be a wife. I wanted to clean a home. I wanted to have kids one day and nurture and bake and cook and clean and just do all those things. And I never really thought about a career. And so, but what I did, what the story I told myself was, I wasn't smart enough, couldn't go to school, didn't really know what you wanted to do. So I did end up starting school, but then we relocated from Ohio to Texas. And so once I did that and I started working, I started progressing in a job, and I just never went back to school. And truly, if I really wanted to go to school, I could have. I just clearly didn't want to. And as the years went on, I just kind of stayed in that place of being the sweet one, kind of going with the flow, people pleasing, comparison, all those things. And then we had children, and I was blessed enough to be able to stay home with the kids. And at the age of 42, so 7 years ago, I started not feeling well emotionally. Always had some bit of anxiety, but not to this level. I literally felt crazy. And so I started to do my homework. I started to reach out to my husband and tell him things and I basically felt like I was screaming for help.
Mm.
And I ended up going to the doctor, which I don't do very readily. And I just explained, this is what's going on. I feel crazy. And I had read a book, and the book talked a lot about hormones, and it talked about natural things. And I got on fire. I was like, because I've always been into health and wellness. And this book just like lit me up, because like, I didn't know all this about hormones. This could be what's going on with me. And so I went to my doctor and asked for a blood test, and he obliged. Also wrote me a prescription for anxiety medication. And I do not fault anyone for taking anything for help, because I think that there's a time and a place, and especially if somebody needs something to get their head above water, by all means, do it. But I did that for a little bit, and I just knew it wasn't for me long term. I got my blood test back, and my doctor said that everything was normal. And I'm just sitting there thinking, you're crazy now, because I am not normal. And so I left the doctor's office, and I just knew, okay, I have to keep on searching. Meanwhile, listening to health and wellness podcasts, lots of different things pop up. And one thing that kept popping up was essential oils. And I kind of scoffed at it at first, like, really? Like essential oils for stress and anxiety and for cramps and for my daughter and focus, or my son? And so, but I'm open to natural things. So I kind of started searching into that. Meanwhile, I also went and saw a natural hormone doctor. So this is all happening at the same time. And the natural hormone doctor also took a blood test. And I also ended up at an education class with essential oils. The natural hormone doctor came back to me and said, okay, before I give you your results, tell me again, why are you here? And I said, well, I'm not having a weight gain. I'm not having hot flashes, but I feel crazy. I'm anxious all the time for no reason. Like it's just constantly there. And I have these thoughts that are not me. I wouldn't even share on this call, like things that I thought. I'm like, it's not me. And the choices that I was making, it was not me. And so he just nodded in agreement and said, everything you said makes complete sense. And he explained that I was really, really low in progesterone. That's your happy hormone. That's what helps keep us grounded. And it does so many other things that I now can look back and say, wow, that impacted that as well. And so I asked him, why did this doctor tell me I was normal? And he said, because they're comparing you to other 42-year-old women with declining hormones. So I accepted some help from him for a while. And he also opened my eyes up to, in the blood test, that I was really low in indole 3, which is found in leafy greens. And that was shocking to me, because I ate very well, organic salads and green smoothies and all the things. But here's the thing that I learned is, when you're stressed and you're stuck in that fight or flight for so long, you're not able to rest and digest. You're not absorbing the nutrients from your food. So that time in my life and going there and reading that book really kind of saved me. And I also had started on the essential oils at the same time. And because he said I needed to supplement my diet, I started on some whole food supplements. And it was like, that was life-changing for me at the age of 42. And now at the age of 50, I feel very, very great. I mean, I want to help other people who are struggling with their emotions to feel this good, because I felt okay before, but at the age of 42 felt terrible. I wasn't thriving. In fact, I honestly some days didn't care if I even survived. I really just didn't. And it's hard to think back now because that's not me at the core. But now Dreana's coming alive, and this is where the solar plexus comes into play. This is where practicing your passions and your strengths and your purpose. Why are you here? Who are you here to help? Who can you serve? And so, yeah, now I'm just in a different space and it feels great. And I want another 50 years like this.
Well, I love that. And I love that you mentioned the book, because that is the book we're going to talk about in our bonus episode, The Sexy Years by Suzanne Summers. So I'm excited to chat about that one. And thank you for your vulnerability of sharing with us what your story looked like and what you went through, because so many of us are going through that. And I remember going to my natural health doctor and saying, you've got to help me because I hate my husband and it's not his fault. Because
Right.
I knew it had to be my hormones, because he wasn't doing anything different. And I liked him a few months ago.
Right.
So, we all have that appear for us. And I also appreciate that you shared in the beginning about your journey into, you didn't know if you were going to school, you didn't know what you were going to do, and you could have done it, but you didn't feel like you were enough, or you didn't feel smart enough, because I think we all go through some level of that. I completely related to the not smart enough, because my brother was the high IQ, but didn't do anything in school, and I busted my butt and still made worse grades than him. So I had that experience also. And so I think that conversation says that we all have that kind of experience on some degree, and we're all connected somewhere in that level. So let's talk about, now that you've got your hormones balanced, working, functioning, harmony, whatever word we want to use, because balance puts a lot of pressure on it. Let's
Sure.
talk about how you started dealing with those feelings of not enough and stepping into living your purpose. When you're reading your self-help and you're reading your growth stuff, what was that impactful moment when you, and I don't like to put pressure on it. Somebody always asks me what the
Mm.
aha moment is, and you're like, I don't know. But where did you feel that shift that took a moment, days, weeks, months for you?
Well, I wish I could remember a specific time, but I will say it's times because I
Mhm.
still have to come back to that sometimes. But I know how to do it. So for me, it is one of the aha moments I had with that whole comparison thing was, when I look back, I'm like, oh, well, this person went to school, they had that degree, they had that. I don't judge people who don't have a degree, but I judged myself very harshly. Um,
Yes.
it's just interesting how we do that. But it hit me, I don't know, several years ago when I realized, wait a second, I actually have been living out my dreams. I wanted to be a wife and a homemaker and, do this and that. And I was able to do that. I had a husband who could support me to be able to stay home. I've been living the dream. I just haven't always fully embraced it and enjoyed it and took it as
Mhm.
my own, as like a dream. Like that's a dream for many people. And so now it's just recognizing that that was Dreana's dream. My dream wasn't to go to school. I love health and wellness. And then when I realized when I sat at that educational class and I'm smelling the oils compared to what I had smelled that I bought from a health food store, I literally sat there and I smelled these oils and I said, I want to do this because I felt so moved emotionally myself. I was like, I didn't even know what this meant. I just told the lady, I'm like, I want to do this. And so that was another little moment that I knew, okay, this is my path. Take this step. I felt very, very called. And it's actually a God thing how that happened because I had literally been presented with another company just weeks before. And I felt like the Holy Spirit say, just listen, don't take action. And so then another company came along and voila. So I feel like I've landed in the right company or the right mission, the right products to help not only my health, but now looking how, wait, if I want to help other people feel this good, this is part of my journey. This is one of the modalities that has helped me. And so, and to empower other moms in their homes all hours of the night, not having to wait to get into the doctor's office. And so that's when I can come back to, this is my purpose, this is my passion, and the whole self-comparison just kind of goes away. So in a nutshell, I would say for me is I need to do the things that make me come alive. And I will say this to anybody who's listening. This is how you come back to who you are. Don't do what makes Dreana feel good. Don't do what makes Chris feel good. Do what makes you feel good and feel alive. If it's walking out in nature, do it. If it's reading a great book, do it. Filling up your tank with those things really, really energizes you. And that's what I have to come back to. If I start to fall into the comparison, most often I'm looking at what somebody else is doing, and it's taking me away from what am I supposed to be doing right now? I'm supposed to be focusing on Dreana and my health and how I'm serving my customers and my yoga students and so forth. And when I come back to focusing on me and then how can I serve them, that's where that passion comes back alive. And that's where that purpose comes alive. And then it's like the blinders are on and I don't care what anybody else is doing. I'm happy for them, but I'm not comparing myself because I'm happy and fulfilled doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
I think that's beautiful. I just want everybody to kind of take a moment and take a deep breath in and hear that. Do what makes you feel good. Do what lights you up. And that's one of the things that I've had the blessing of finding with Grounding Journey, because for a while I was pushing to make it happen and I was pushing for deadlines and I was trying to bring it to life because the world needed it and it sucked. I wasn't enjoying it. It wasn't fun. And I let go of that. I surrendered that deadline and that have to, and started listening to that fire. And passion is one of my favorite words. Just the word passion sparks something in me. And so finding that passion, because so often we're here on this earth and we strive to get everything done and we're to the grind and we've got to get our kids to achieve this and we've got to achieve that and we don't enjoy it. And, I look at my friends. Travel is one of my passions. I absolutely, everything I own comes either from Goodwill, secondhand stores. One, I like to kind of recycle, upcycle, but also I'm saving all my pennies for travel. And so I look at my friends who take 1 or 2 weeks off vacation every year, but they have these great retirement accounts. I don't have this amazing, I have a retirement account, but it's not amazing. But in 2019, I spent 53 days abroad because we don't know what tomorrow is. And it's making sure that you're living that passion in that moment that keeps you powered and keeps you moving forward for the days that suck, so that you've got that fire and that passion. And I can definitely hear the passion for what you do in your voice. And anybody who's watching this on YouTube will see it in the sparkle in your eyes. But there's definitely living with that, the light inside of you. And that's the solar plexus. It's where the sun shines in you. So when I do my meditations, I always just visualize the sun in, my navel area as the big bright yellow, and the solar plexus is yellow. So it's really connecting with that fire inside. And I love that you definitely have that spark in you. Let's talk a little bit about because one of the comments you made when we were chatting is the solar plexus lets you know when you're not in alignment with who you truly are. How does that show up for you as a reminder that you're not in alignment?
So the solar plexus is located in that navel area, and that I will get a stomach ache. I won't feel safe. And I've also come to realize that over the years, I've had little signs of slower digestion, I would say. And now with doing tongue scraping, if your listeners don't know what that is, Google it. It's really fascinating, but that tells you a lot too. And it all comes back to, I can tell when I'm, digesting a little slower. So remember when I mentioned that my blood work showed that I was really low in something and my doctor's telling me I'm on a carcinogenic pathway. So again, it's in your digestive fire. So stomach ache, and sometimes I'll feel it up in my heart chakra, and even my brain will sometimes just feel foggy, and that can be overwhelm or just self-doubt. But I mean, just paying close attention to all those different areas in your body when you don't feel good. Like say you get that phone call and it's not good news. Like, where do you feel that? You know, you're going to feel it in your stomach, you'll probably feel it in your heart, and you generally are feel it in your head. So I know they talk about the two brains, but really there's three. So you have your stomach and your heart and your brain. But that my stomach is a good indicator of, and my energy. I have to say the energy is a big one. If you're not seeing that spark, you know, in Dreana's eyes or the face light up, like other people won't see it either. Those who know me really well could probably tell, like, oh, Dreana is not in alignment with who she really is. And so others can see it and I can feel it. And so just doing the things that go back again to like what lights you up, you know, grabbing the oil that I know I need, moving my body, because that moves that stuck energy out. So for the listeners too, like if you haven't tried going for a walk or just moving your body when you're not feeling right emotionally, it helps to move that negative energy out and bring back that positive energy. And so I usually can just tell by my stomach or my mood and energy.
And
Is
I
it the
love
same
that you,
for you?
yeah, I love that you brought up the movement, because I definitely like to, that's one of the things I use yoga for, is because
Mhm.
it moves that energy out and opens space for new energy to come in. And it's one of those, I try to set the intention when I get on my mat of, let me move that stagnant stuff. I am a huge, I love pigeon because it's going to open
Yeah.
up my root. It's going to move all that stuff that I've just been stuffing down there. And
Yes.
it's definitely one of those, but it's also, you know, sometimes you're at your desk, you can't do yoga. So I also like to dance. You know, everybody has, you know, we talk about having dance breaks, but what that really does for you is it does raise your vibration. Put on a great song. One of my
Mhm.
favorites, and I've mentioned this one recently. If you haven't heard it, you have to check it out. It's called Adventure of Me by Rob Ricardo. And I
Okay.
can't play it because it'll shut down the podcast. But it's
Okay.
Adventure of Me by Rob Ricardo. And it's just got the best words. It's 4 minutes long. It's not like headbang music that you're going to get embarrassed if somebody walks around the corner. I always think my neighbors must think I'm silly because I'm dancing in my office and if they can see in the windows. Uh, but another thing too is just get outside, as you mentioned, go for a walk, go for a hike, get back in nature, because we're
Yep.
so stuck to our computers, especially now that everybody's working from home. It's winter, it's cold, we're stuck inside. Just go outside
Mhm.
for a couple minutes, take a couple of deep
Yes.
breaths, be in earth and nature.
Yes,
Those
it's very grounding, brings you back, and bringing that clear energy. It just clears your mind. If you feel stuck, like step outside. I literally, it's, I don't know, about 30 degrees here in Columbus too. And I just last week stepped outside in the grass barefoot in the
mm,
morning with my warm lemon water just to feel invigorated and inspired and awake. And I mean, it just felt amazing. I wasn't there but more than a minute, but it just, I don't know, it just felt so good. So
yeah, I love it. Well, Dreana, thank you so much for sharing with us about your journey, for sharing your vulnerability of where you've been, and just for having the conversation, because it's been a fun one. And I really enjoyed talking about the solar plexus with you. And I'm super excited because when we talked, I'd never heard of the Sexy Years, and it's a neat book. So I look forward to talking with you about that in the bonus episode that we'll release 2 days after this. So, Dreana, thank you so much for being here. I know my followers are going to want to hear more about your journey and connect more with you as a yoga teacher, as an essential oil educator. Where's the best place they can find you? Where do you hang out these days?
well, first of all, thank you again, Chris, because I really enjoyed this time and I was really excited because I knew that your podcast is drawing the people that we're meant to. and that we could connect with and resonate with. So it made it so much more enjoyable. So thanks for having me. And
Thank you.
I am on Instagram. I really like Instagram, and they can find me at Dreana Nealon. So it's kind of spelled like Dreama with an M, but it's with an N. And then I'm on Facebook as Dreana Nealon. And then I do have a Facebook group for anybody who just likes to learn more about maybe essential oils and natural tips. It's called Wellness Inside Out. And
Mhm.
then I have a Facebook group or a website, Wellness with Dreana. And so those are the places that I'm mostly hanging out.
Well, that is great. And we will put all those links on groundingjourney.com under the podcast section so that if they're driving and didn't know how to spell it or something, they can still catch up with you and find you. Because I think you've got a lot of great information to share. So thank you so much for sharing that with us today.
Thank you, Chris. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for being a part of my journey. I would love to be part of yours. The podcast has inspired me to create an entire line of products available now on Etsy. I started with a chakra yoga card deck, added meditation set kits, altar kits, home blessing kits, and even a crystal chakra set. I'd love for you to check it out on my website, groundingjourney.com. There you'll find all the products and the links to purchase them on Etsy. Welcome to today's bonus episode of Grounding Journey. My guest Dreana and I are going to talk about The Sexy Years by Suzanne Summers. And I have to tell you, we were chatting so much about books, we had to stop so that we could talk about this one and then talk about the other stuff. And so, Dreana, you brought this book up and suggested it. I'd never heard of it. It was written in 2005. And I don't normally read the summary off of the books that you find on thrift books or Amazon, but I have to read this one because it's a great introduction to the book. And I think it will really help our readers connect to it, our listeners connect to reading it. And I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'm just going to read the part of it. Getting older can be brutal. Women gain weight, lose their sex drive, experience hot flashes, suffer memory loss, become short-tempered, find it difficult to sleep, and on and on. It's not so easy for men either. They start to lose their energy and stamina as they go too, and they have to live with women going through menopause. After years of being thin and fit and full of energy, Suzanne herself encountered the 7 dwarfs of menopause: itchy, bitchy, sweaty, sleepy, bloated, forgetful, and all dried up. Instead of living out the rest of her life cranky, sleep deprived, and libidoless, Suzanne set out to discover how she could get her mind, body, and life back and banish those pesky dwarfs. I love that. Like, just reading that makes me want to read the book. But
Yeah.
knowing what we talked about in the main episode, where you shared kind of about your going through hormones in your 40s, obviously this book called to you and really educated you and was a life game changer for you.
Yes, it really, really was. And I'm so thankful I read that book years ago. And hopefully your listeners will be open to maybe checking it out if they're struggling with any of those things. But yeah, for me at the age of 42, going through major stress and anxiety, and I found this book, and it gave me permission to push forward and question my doctor who told me I'm normal, and just keep pursuing, keep doing the research, keep doing homework. So this book, yes, it talks a lot about hormones. But I personally think that your hormones are a really, really good foundation to how you're feeling physically and emotionally. So a lot of people are just not really balanced and don't even realize. I mean, even looking back for me, Chris, I didn't get pregnant that easily. And I now, if wish I knew then what I know now, it would have really made things a little bit smoother, but it was part of my journey. So it is what it is. But yes, The Sexy Years, I love the title. And I found, like, through that book, I found help with my hormones, and I found natural solutions. I actually, because of this book, it helped me to find part of my passion and purpose and what I do now to help people. And so I really am very grateful for that book. And I might just go back and read it again just for fun, or read her other books. But yeah, I like to tell people about it because it's not one I had ever really heard of. And I don't even remember how I found it. So, but hopefully it can help somebody else by mentioning it today.
Well, and I love that it sounds so empowering, that because I can see how much it truly empowered you to take control of your own health, to find out what resonates for you. And that's what we need in books, is not something that tells us exactly what you're supposed to do, but empowers us to discover and learn more. And you said it taught you to ask more questions, to not accept an answer, to really keep digging until you found your answer.
Yes. And on top of that, like, some people might say, oh, because it talks about hormone therapy and replacement. And some people are very quick to say, oh, no, that causes, I don't know if you can say this, cancer. I don't know if I can say that on your podcast, but whatever, it can cause issues. And but I would question that, and I would caution people to, once again, slow down, do your research. There is a difference in substituting. And so I learned a lot through the book and continued to learn a lot on my own. So I'm more into the natural, holistic type of anything, from hormones to medications and lifestyles. So with that being said, hopefully that will help some of your listeners to have, like, an open mind as they read the book.
Well, and one of the things I'll ask about it, because I've read several hormone books, and some
Mhm.
of them you read and it empowers you and it makes sense and it sticks in your brain. And other ones you read are so scientific and so
Mm,
above my knowledge that it just
same.
makes me feel even more overwhelmed and unhappy and uncertain. But this one, just reading the description, and the description goes on, and it really is comical. So if nothing else, I encourage people to Google the sexy years and read
Right.
the overview of it. But tell me how this book was written in the sense of educating you and teaching you.
Well, obviously it wasn't too scientific because I am not about that either. I would have, if it would have been way up here, I wouldn't have finished the book. And I read it so many years ago, but I can tell you that I loved the book. So I know that it was in a way that I could relate to Suzanne. I mean, obviously I haven't gone through her personal health struggles that she went through. Thank goodness. But just, I mean, and I'm 50, so I watched Three's Company. I mean, it's Suzanne Summers is Suzanne Summers. I mean, how can you not love her? But just the way she wrote the book. So she has humor in there. She has real life. She's real. And I just know when I read the book, I even told my girlfriend about it. I'm like, you have to read this. You'll love it. She loved it. But yeah, I don't read the really hard to understand. And especially even with what I do with sharing and educating on essential oils, I can help people find the studies. Oh my gosh, I read the first few sentences or I just look for the words I need and I'm like, I'm out of here. I do not want to read clinical studies. It's so boring. Just tell me how it's going to make me feel. Like, will it, help me sleep? Will it take away stress and anxiety? So yeah, the book is well written for somebody like me. If you want more of the sciencey, I'm sure it's in the references and she can give you that too. But yeah.
I love you brought up Three's Company because I totally was not making that connection, but I was a huge Three's Company fan. So that made me just have a big smile and take me back to that moment of watching her come out of the bedroom in the living room. So that was
Yes.
great. Thank you. That's so much fun. Well, it
Mhm.
sounds like a great book. And, are there other books that you've read that have kind of empowered you through your health journey that are something to mention too for us?
Yeah, so I love anything by Abraham Hicks, and
Mm.
he's on. Do you like her as well?
I've just dabbled. I have not dug into it, but I've heard many people speak so highly.
Yes, she's one of those people. When people say, "Who would you like to have dinner with?" A famous person. First of all, it'd be Dwayne Johnson. But if it has to be a female, then I'd say would be one of my top picks. But she has a couple of books that I absolutely love: The Law of Attraction and The Art of Allowing. And
Mm,
those are going to help more with like the emotions. But when you've got your emotions in check, like the physical body comes naturally.
mhm.
It's all one big piece. Our body is all connected. And so when you're reading things that are helping mentally, it's helping physically. When you do the opposite, it's helping you mentally. So I love her books as well and her podcasts. So I would say check them out if you haven't. They're really great.
Well, and that all ties back into the solar plexus, which is what we talked about in
Yeah.
your main episode. It's about
Yes.
stepping into your power, feeling the fire in your belly, and finding that willpower and discipline to keep showing up and shining through. And so I can see how all of those things really connect and have definitely been part of your journey for it through the
You're right.
process.
And that is like what I make my business of daily is like, okay, how do I keep feeling good? What does Dreana need today? Um, I really, really love the whole energy talk and like writing those high vibe emotions, not like being
Hmm.
way up here where people can't relate, but you know what I'm talking about. Like my favorite emotion is joy. And so when I feel joy, like that's how I can tell I'm in alignment. Everything as well. If I'm falling, like in your podcast, we talked about the comparison, and that takes you into the self-doubt, and it takes you out of like who you really are and who you were created to be and serve, and letting your light shine. And so those lower vibe places of comparison and fear and doubt, and it's like that is no fun. And so just and that's kind of where Abraham Hicks comes into play also, is um, helping to find those higher vibe emotions and tapping back into them. And so, yeah.
I love it. Well, you have given me a couple of new books to add to my wish list of it's really bad. My wish list I looked at it the other day is 59 books. So
Oh,
and I just keep buying more. It's awful.
yeah,
But
I
thank
do too.
you. Yeah. As we said before we were recording, I got 4 in the mail today. I don't
Oh,
know when
that's,
I'm going to read them, but I've got 4 new ones today. So, well, thank you again, Dreana, for your conversation, for your sharing all that you have. And I'm sure that our listeners are going to want to check you out. So tell us where they can find you.
well, thank you, Chris. It's been so much fun. I really enjoyed this conversation. I am on Instagram, so at Dreana Nealon, and I'm also on Facebook. Would be Dreana Terrell Nealon. And then I have a Facebook group it's called Wellness Inside Out. So if your listeners are interested in learning more about how to take care of themselves from the inside out, it's called Wellness Inside Out. And then I have a website called Wellness with Dreana. So if you can't tell, I really love wellness.
Well, and that's a great thing to be involved in and encouraging others to find. So we'll
Yeah.
definitely put all the links on groundingjourney.com along with the blog post and this podcast. So if any of our listeners are driving or didn't know the spelling or didn't get it written down, you can go to groundingjourney.com, check out the podcast section and the solar plexus. You will have all your contact information there. Thank you again, Dreana, so much for being a
Thank
part of the
you.
conversation. Thank you for bringing your insight. And it was a pleasure to have a conversation with you.
Likewise. Pleasure's mine.